As part of our Stewardship series, we're inviting testimony for several weeks here from various members of our congregation, and today Nancy and Bart are going to come forward and tell us about their experience with First Church.
Hi, I'm Bart.
And I'm Nancy.
We're new here, but Robin invited us to talk about our journey and the importance of mission that we both share. Despite being new here, we're churched. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, I define it as not remembering a time in your life when you were not in some place like this. Nancy grew up in an active Presbyterian family. They established a church in an Atlanta suburb. Her mother in the late 1960s was among the first women elected as an elder in the Presbyterian church, when that was still both rare and somewhat radical. Nancy represented New Jersey as a youth delegate to the National Assembly. I'm a PK, preacher's kid. My dad was a Presbyterian pastor in the Western Carolinas, North and South Carolina, so if you're wondering, where's that accent from, that's where it's from. And I'm not making this up. My earliest memory is eating Cheez-Its in Mrs. Williams' church nursery. I still like them. Nancy and I met in a Shakespeare course at Clemson University, and we soon figured out that church was one of those things that we shared. That led to pretty regular Sunday morning dates to go to church, and then to go to the famous fried chicken buffet at the Clemson House. Over the next 50 years, we'll celebrate 50 years of marriage this summer, we've been active in every church throughout our journey, and Nancy's going to share some of that.
Notice he has one page of notes and I have a packet. We have different styles. I wear a bracelet often that Bart gave me 50 years ago when we got married. And inside the bracelet it says, "God guide our love and our life." I firmly believe that God has done that, even when we weren't sure exactly what was going to happen next in the choices we made. But time and time again, God showed us the way. He led us. My call to serve the church grew out of volunteer work with Bart in our early years, working with youth. So over time, I began to realize that it was more than just a volunteer call. God was calling me to serve the church. And so God led me to gain more training, more education, more experience, and I eventually became certified in the United Church of Christ. I served a local church for 35 years. And I was inspired by the hymn that we sing often in this church, "Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I will go, Lord, if you lead me." My faith journey took me on a rich career of 35 years, serving children and youth and their families in the United Church of Christ. Though in those early years, I began to realize that one of the things that was lacking for children was they were getting lots of Bible stories and through the curriculum and things like that in the classroom, but they were missing out on mission. And mission was very important to me, how we acted out our faith, as it was to Bart. And so I realized that mission in the church was more geared for adults. It was about learning about a mission and then an adult writing a check, rather than truly experiencing mission. So I began to think about how we could help children and youth understand that. And so for the next years of my serving the church, that became a passion and a goal. So So we began to try and look at things that children could do and learn outside of the classroom. And to my surprise, I was amazed at what the church, the adults, learned, and I learned from the children. It's hard to deny when a 6-year-old tells you about the other ark, that there was an ark that Noah had, but there was also this ark that we went to see, that we heard about, and then we went to the farm to see it, and it was at in Rutland at Overlook Farm, at sponsored Heifer International. And this child talked about that this ark had bees and goats and bunnies and all kinds of things that helped other people in the world. You can't deny that that's a pretty powerful story from a 6-year-old, and I thank Pat Kay for those opportunities that she allowed the children of the church I serve to have at Overlook Farm. Or a 13-year-old is a part of their confirmation project to show which was to show care and compassion to the world outside the walls of the church, put together a walk. A 13-year-old organized, planned, and put together a walk for Habitat for Humanity and raised $1,000. And we're talking about a long time ago. The pride that she had that she could do this with the members of the church and her friends and her family. And that young woman actually is here most every Sunday over the last couple of months with her own family, trying to show how church is more than just words, it's actions. Or the 16-year-old boy who on the Boston Common shared, as we were handing out sandwiches to the homeless, and shared with me that he saw Christ, he saw love, he saw the love of Christ in the eyes of a man who took a sandwich from him and said, "Thank you, son, God bless you." He saw God that day. Those are powerful examples, and the church really benefited from those examples, as did I, and it just reinforced the importance of mission and experiencing mission. So the years passed, and a few years ago, I heard God calling me again, and God was calling me this time that it was time for me to retire. So I did. And I had no idea where this journey was going, but I figured, as before, God would lead both of us, because we were a team. And so, there we went. Little did I realize that we were going to be like the people, Moses' people, the people of Israel, and we were going to wander through the wilderness for about 3 or 4 years. And that's what we did. Our wilderness consisted of online church in Boston and Northampton and Cambridge, or going to churches. And all these wildernesses contain things like apathy, unfriendly atmospheres, focusing on self rather than outside the walls of the church. Many of the churches were unsure of why they even existed. Bart and I started thinking about a talk talking about people, what brings people together in a church. And we started thinking about a talk and a workshop that we went to where Don Remick, a pastor and leader of the United Church of Christ, said that churches that would survive and grow during the time of falling membership and closing churches would be those churches where people had a clear understanding of what mission was. So that became Bart and my goal, to find a church like that. A month or so later, I read about a new music director, even though she would not start until September. But on July 2nd of 2023, she would be introduced and share her music in worship. I mentioned it to Bart, who had spent his life participating in music and worship, and we decided to come to Sterling on that Sunday. We were led here by Abby, and what she and her family chose to play one of those early Sundays was "Here I Am, Lord." So here we were. It was an amazing Sunday. Pam presented us with a sticker, a rainbow sticker, and welcomed us and made us feel a part of it. Sarah read a wonderful welcoming statement, which is read every Sunday, that made you feel like everybody truly was welcome here. And it happened that the service was led by Chuck and Barbara on that Sunday. And Chuck presented this incredible message based on the story of Ruth and Naomi, and about God's goodness being bigger than our world of bigotry and hatred, and to look for the helpers. Over the next 2 months, we quickly learned that First Church was full of the helpers who knew what their mission was. It was to create heaven on earth. Over that summer, as we met people, we learned from Aaron and Jen about La Romano. Christina told us about the shelter, the house in Worcester that supported families, and the Walk of the Wild, and the Hollyberry Brunch. And the deacons told us about the Deacon Fund, and Pat Macaron and Joyce and Pam told us about the community lunches. We learned not only did First Church welcome everyone to it, but you, the people here, knew what you were called to do. Work and to help create heaven on earth. And you did this by showing kindness and love and serving others, both within this church and beyond. Each Sunday last summer that we were here, those first 2 months, was led by an energetic leadership team and beautiful music by Kate and Sarah and various pastors like Chuck and Barbara and Sarah also. Whenever we commented to various people about how impressed we were with the worship, they said, "Just wait until you meet our pastor, Robin." We had yet to meet her. It was hard for us to imagine that our experience at First Church could get any better, but you were all correct. Robin was the icing on the cake, as she told us we could do hard things to help create heaven on earth. Bart and I heard God calling us, and were led here through Abby and Aaron and Pam and Pat, so many of you that are here at First Church. When Robin asked us to speak a couple of months ago, she said, "Tell your story, tell why you're here." And then when I confirmed that this past week with Barbara said, "But could you also prayerfully talk about your prayerful decision about giving to this church's ministry?" And so I immediately thought of the Sunday this summer when we were encouraged to take a button, which we wear often, about "Ask me why I love First Church." And so I decided that I would change the button, and it says, "Ask me why we give to First Church." Our response is because God led us here, and God guided us here. And then our other response is we give our time, our talent, support, and have pledged the monetary resources that we are able to First Church because we want to be part of this church community, and we want to join you in helping to create heaven on earth.
I think it was our third visit here in July that Abby sang, "Somewhere along the road, somebody waits for me, a guiding light to show the way. Somebody waits for me." First Church is that guiding light, and we've found our somewhere.